Hello, welcome to MongoDB's YouTube channel. My name is Aasawari and I'm a developer advocate at MongoDB. In this video today, we will understand and create a Symfony-based application using MongoDB. This entire video will be divided into four different parts. The first part of the video, where we will be covering introduction, we'll talk about what PHP is, how is Symfony combined with MongoDB helpful in creating modern day applications. In the next part of the video, where we'll try to install some of the prerequisites and create a skeleton Symfony project on which we'll try to create these REST APIs. Following which, the third part of the video is where we'll start actual coding part of the video. We'll write some REST APIs, and while writing these REST APIs, the last part is where we'll test all of these REST APIs that have been created. We'll also be testing each of these REST APIs while we are writing these REST APIs. So let's stay tuned till the end of the video so that at the end of the video you can understand and create a Symfony application of your own. So as you might already know, Symfony is a framework that is being used for PHP. What is PHP? PHP is a scripting language that has been very famous for creating web applications. From simple college projects to large applications, PHP has been in the picture for a very long time. Now, Symfony is a very powerful framework that allows you to create some great modern day applications. And when I say modern day applications, it follows the MVC architecture, which means it follows the model view controller architecture. We'll talk about models, we'll talk about views and the controller separately while executing the code. But what helps is the MVC architecture helps you to create a clean code which is also scalable. Talking about scalability, MongoDB plays an important role when it comes to modern day application. MongoDB is a NoSQL based database that stores the data in a JSON like format, which is known as the BSON format. Now, this BSON format is very similar to the unstructured data that is present in the modern day applications that allows you to create these interesting modern applications, combining it with Symfony framework at ease. Now, let's begin by creating the first Atlas cluster where we'll be using the MongoDB database. The database that we'll use here is on Atlas, and we'll be creating a first cluster for us which is absolutely free. What you need to do is go to cloud.mongodb.com, register yourself, follow the steps that are given in the description below. Once you are all set, then you can come back to the video and see how to create your free cluster. So once you are all set, this is how the screen would look like on which we are going to start creating our clusters. Click on create cluster and make sure you select free tab that allows you to create a free cluster. Let's name our cluster as Symfony app, and just click on create deployment and it will create the cluster for you. The next step as a part of the introduction is where we are trying to load the sample data. Now, this sample data, to load it, we are going to use a script on our terminal. The link to the script is available in the description and you can follow the script to load some sample data. It is going to create up around 100 documents inside the collection on which we'll be creating this application. So let's wait for some time to create the cluster. Okay, now your cluster is already created. You do not have data or documents or collection right now inside your cluster. Click on connect and click on shell. Copy the connection string that is available to you, and now we'll create some sample data inside this cluster. So let's go to terminal and see how do we do that. The first step is do npm install. The next step is paste that connection string that we have used with the username and password. Once you are connected to your Atlas cluster, you need to run the script. The first step is and rest of it I'll just copy paste so that it's easier and saves your time. Let's start by creating a database for us. Let's name the database as Symfony. And now let's just copy the entire script and paste it. So now there are 100 documents. If you see, the name of the fields are name, location, night cost, and the availability from the start date to the end date. I'll explain how each of them is and what this entire application is doing while we are creating this application. Now let's insert this into our rentals collection. This is what would do. And the last one thing that we need to do is we need to create an index. Why we need to create an index? To just see the performance of each of the queries that we are performing. So at this point the data is already loaded in your Atlas cluster. Let's go back to the cluster and verify if it is loaded. Let's do a quick refresh. Let's go to browse collections and see the Symfony database and the rental collection already being created. So the Symfony database is created and the rental collection is also created with 100 sample data inside it. Now let's go to the second part of this video where we are trying to install some of the prerequisites needed to create this Symfony application. For this you need to go back to the terminal and exit from your Mongo shell. Let's do a quick clear and start installing. Now, if you're following me along this video, I have already installed all of these prerequisites. So you would see the installation is quicker as compared to you. So my recommendation to you will be follow each of these steps and pause the video till your installation is completed so that you do not miss any of the prerequisites that are needed. The first thing that we need is PHP. So let's do brew install PHP. This will install the latest PHP version for you. Great. So I already have PHP 8.4.4. The next step is where we install the composer. So let's install that as well. So I already have the composer installed as well. The third step is where we need to install the Symfony CLI. So copy this command and this would install the Symfony CLI for you. Great. Everything is set. The first step now is to create the skeleton project in Symfony. How do we do that? We do that using the composer command. So the command to do that is composer create project Symfony skeleton. Let's name our project as rentals. So this should create a rental project for us. Great, it is already there. Now let's go inside this project that we have created. At this point you would see a skeleton of it is already created. Now there are few things that we need to install as well to run our application. For example, MongoDB. So to do that, the simple command to install is peckle install MongoDB. This would take some time, so I would recommend again to pause this video, let it install, and then follow the next steps. Select all the default options that you see on the screen since we do not need anything else for our project. If you have your specific requirements to create another projects, you can select the choice of your own. For this one, I'm going to select all the default options. Awesome. The MongoDB has been installed. If you need to verify this, you need to run this command to check if MongoDB has been installed. Go to this php.ini file. You would see extension equals to mongodb.so. If this is not there, you can manually add it as well. So at this point, the MongoDB is already installed. The next thing that we need to do is install the drivers. To do that, we'll use the command composer require mongodb slash mongodb. Let this install. The next thing that we need to install is very important, which is doctrine ODM. This is very similar to ORM that you use with SQL to create your Symfony application to do your relational mapping. For this, since we have documents inside MongoDB, this is known as object document mapper ODM, and we are going to do this using doctrine. So let's do that. The command for that is composer require doctrine slash mongodb ODM bundle. All spellings correct. Let's install. Let's say yes to this and no to Docker, since we do not need any Docker configurations for this. So we are all set. Now at this point, everything related to MongoDB has already been installed. Your Symfony project is also created. So what you need to do next? There are three other things that we need to install. The first thing is forms. If you're trying to input the data in a PHP document, you use forms. Now, to create those forms, you have another bundle that you can install using the composer command. So, Symfony allows you to install those forms using the command composer require symfony slash form. This would install and allow you to create forms to input the data and store it into the database. The next thing is, how do we create this front end? So this front end is what is going to act as the view of the MVC. So this, for this we'll be using twig. The next command to do that is composer require symfony slash twig hyphen bundle. Great. Let's install Twig. That will allow you to create some front end for your application. The last thing that is left, and this would be the last part of your requisites, is assets. So do composer require symfony slash assets. Great. Now you have everything installed in the system. Just to see how everything is getting installed and is everything all correct, what you need to do is to start your application, do Symfony server start, and you should see something on your browser at least. So let's go back to our browser screen and just type localhost 8000, and you should see this Symfony home screen on your system. Since at this point we have not created any view, we have not created any controllers, this is just the basic Symfony skeleton project that we have created. Now let's go on to the next step, where we start creating these REST APIs, where we start creating these documents. Let's open our VS Code. Let's go to file, open folder, and rentals. Now you see everything is already present. Since we installed MongoDB, there is a Docker in MongoDB YAML file that is being created. We installed Twig. There is a twig.yaml file which is created. And then there are the other prerequisites. This is where all your code will go. The controller is where you write all the controllers, all the REST APIs that you create. And document is where you do the mapping to your database fields. The next folder is templates. Templates is where we create these views. So views means all the twig files reside inside this template folder. The other important file is your .env file. So if you have installed MongoDB correctly, you would see MongoDB-URL and MongoDB-DB name already being there present in your .env file. The last and the most important file that is created is the composer.json. While we created the skeleton of the project, there were some of the things that already got installed, and there are some that we did it manually using the composer commands. For example, we installed form, we installed MongoDB, we installed the MongoDB ODM bundle, and also the Twig bundle. All the other things came along with the skeleton project. So this composer.json describes all of the prerequisites that have been installed with the version they have been installed with. So if you ever want to change any of these version, you can go to composer.json and change it and run the composer file again. Now let's get into the third part of the video, where we'll start by creating all of these documents and the controllers. Before that, let's also copy the connection string from the Atlas cluster. Let's go back to the Atlas and try to get our connection string for PHP and paste it in our .env files. So click on Symfony app, click on connect new, confirm, select the driver, select the version. I'm selecting the most latest version for us, and then just copy the connection string. Now let's go back to the VS Code and paste the connection string for you. Remember to change the password as it is not by default present. So now you already have your URL and your database present. Now, what's next? The first thing that we need to do is to create a base file, base twig file. That means when you click on localhost 8000, what should be visible on your screen is the base file for you. So let's create this base file. For this part of the video, it is important for you to understand that I'll be doing copy paste method to copy the code from where it is already present in the workshop to this VS Code in order to simplify and in order to reduce the time of the video. So let's also save the CNV file and go to the first thing, which is base html.twig. So let me remove this and I'll just do a paste method. Now, if you see thoroughly into this twig file, you would see this is nothing but a simple HTML code. If you want to learn more about twig, there is a link in the description that you can follow and understand how these twig files are written. So this is the first screen that would be visible to you before you do any of the controllers, before you are performing any of the actions. So you should see MongoDB private home apartments this on your screen, because this is the title of the screen. Now the next part is, how do we design this? All of the designing and all the things that are publicly available goes inside this public folder. So when you go to inspect a specific page on your web browser, you should see some HTML file or some PHP file that it refers to, or some of the images that are already present. All of this goes inside this public folder. So let's create a CSS for the twig file that we have already created. It would go inside the CSS folder, and then let's create a new file named styles.css. I will again just copy paste, and it is already created. So this is going to create some div for you for each of these rentals which are already available. So to give you a brief of what this application is, this is a rental application where you can book a rental place for a specific number of days on the dates which are already available, and you can see at the end of the video how all of these bookings are already present inside your booking database. So that is how the relation is being shown between the rentals and the bookings. Now, the next important thing is, how do we create these documents? Now, let's understand this first by looking at how our database is looking like. So let's go to Atlas again, go to Browse Collection, and let's see one of our document and see the fields that we have inserted and how do they look like. So if you see, you have an ID, you have a name, location, the night cost. So the name of the rental is this, it is available at this particular location. The cost of it is around $360, and it is available from 1st January 2024 to 1st January 2026. So this is all being inserted using the script that we followed. So now to map all of these field values to our PHP applications, we create these documents. Now the name of the document PHP file is same as the name of the collection. So please note, it is rentals here. So we'll also create the rental file for us. So we'll name it as rental.php and just do okay. Now it is all set. So how we have done it is, we have mapped all the fields. So you have ID, you see dollar name, location, night cost, and the availability. Now this availability field that you see is embedded inside the documents. That means it has array of the start date and the end date. So we'll create another PHP class for this availability. Let's go ahead and do that. Availability.php. Great. Let's copy and I'll show you how those contents look like. So you have inside your rental collection, you had embedded as availability, in which you had the start date and the end date. You can create the getters and setters if you want to in the later part of the video. And one another thing that we want to create is the bookings. So once you click on one of the rental and you book that for a specific date, all of those documents would go inside this booking collection. So this booking collection will be created only after you have booked a specific rental. But how will that look like is we are going to map it with the another file name, which is booking.php. Great. So now at this point, we have all of it already created. We have the booking, you have the rental, and you have the availability. All of that is created. Now, what is the next step? The next step is creating this controllers that we want to see. The first controller that we will create, the name, let's name the file as the rental controller.php. Again, I'll just copy paste the method that I already have in order to save your time. So let's see how this rental controller is written. Now, this rental controller has one REST API, which is just localhost 8000. The name of that API is going to be rental index, and the function that it would perform is index. Now, what this is doing is it is getting the city name, that means where it is located, the check-in and the checkout date for each of the rentals that are available inside your documents. So, and it will fetch all of them and it will show you. We have also applied some regex here. So if you do not know the entire city name, you can just put half of the city name or just some few letters of the a few characters of the city name, and it should be available on your screen. So you would see that location already present, and then we are mapping it to the index.html.twig. So now what we need to do next is we need to create this rent inside this rental folder. We need to create index.html.twig. That means when you execute this specific REST API, how is it going to look like? Now let's go and see how do we create that. Let's go to templates, create a new folder as rental, make sure the names are correct, and new file with the name index.html.twig. So let's go and paste that. So this is going to follow from, this is going to take your templates from the base HTML twig that we have already created, and it will create, the title would be rental list, and then this it would have all of these fields. So now it is making use of form where we are going to enter the city name, the check-in date, and the checkout date, and then we'll submit. And this is how you're going to see all of the rentals that have been created. The last thing that we need to do is we need to route all of these APIs that we have created, and just to copy paste. I just did a copy paste from the route file that is already available to see how all of these REST APIs are going to look like. Now we are all set to start our application and see how it is looking at this point of time. So let's go back and look at our terminal and do a Symfony server start. So it is creating, and then let's go back to our browser to see how it is looking at this point. So what it is going to do, so it has fetched all of the rentals that are available inside the collection, and with that it also has a form where you can enter the location, put the check-in and the checkout dates. So let's say, let's take an example where we have just mentioned port. So the no name of the location is Port Salvador, but we have just mentioned port because we are using regex. Let's book it from 28th of February to, let's say, 1st of March, and then let's see if that, so all with port inside them, with the location name would all be visible. So this is how we have created the first REST API for us, where it is going to search with that specific name. Now, what is the next step? The next step is creating this rental. So now when you click on create rental option, you should be allowed to create a new rental for you. So how do we do that? Now let's go back to the code and understand it. Okay, let's go back to the rental controller and create another REST API for us. Now how this REST API is going to look like is this. So what this is doing, let's see. This is going to display all of the details for your rental information. So it will get the check-in and the checkout date for you. It takes the input in the form of string and displays it, processes it with the date time uh, data type, and then calculates the total price based on the check-in and the checkout date. So if the check-in and the checkout date is it's the same, if you're booking it for one day, it would show like one day cost. And if there is an error where you say your check-in date is greater than your checkout date, it should show an error. So all of those kind of uh, validations we have put in into this specific controller, and we would see. Now where is this rendering? It is rendering into details.html.twig. So we need to create this details.html.twig as well. So again, let's go to templates again. Inside rental, let's create new file which is named as details.html.twig, and just do paste again. And this is going to show you how each of these rental details is going to look like. Okay, now at this point we have created, if we want to see the details of a specific rental. Now let's create another REST API in the same process and see how does it work if you want to create a specific rental for yourself. Let's create another REST API for that, that is going to perform the create operation. So this is going to create a new rental for you, and it is also asking for a rental type. So now let's create a rental type for us inside the forms, because this is going to take the input from the forms and then submit it or store it inside your database. So where this would go is inside your src folder where you see your controller and documents. You need to create another folder name form to input all the form methods. Now inside this form you need to create rental type dot php. Now this is the file which is going to take the input from the forms and store it inside the database. And the last step is how your form view is going to look like. So let's go to rental again and create a new file with the name create.html.twig. Let's do that. And again, let's do a copy paste method that we have been following, that is going to create a form for you. Now let's test it for a while and see how far have we come. So let's go back to the controller again. Let's just do localhost 8000. Let's go back to the browser and see. Now if you want to, the second REST API that we created that showed us the specific information for a specific rental property, let's click on each of these rental, and it allows you to gives all the information. Where is it located? The night rate and the total rate. At this point the total rate is not available because we have not selected the check-in and the checkout date. So let's go back again and try to create a new rental this time. Let's click on create rental. Let's say rental test. Let's keep the location as maybe India and put it as $1200, and then keep the date as 1st January, the same one that we have it for all the other rentals that have been created. Let's click on create. Now if you go at the down, you should see the rental test being created. If I click on this rental test, it would also give me the information for that specific rental that is available. Now the next step is if you want to book a specific. So if you see on the screen there is a book button. Now what this book button, if I click on this right now, it is going to show an error because all the REST APIs that we have created till now, there is no API which was done for if we want to book a specific hotel. So let's try to do that. Let's go back to our code and go to the controller method again. Let's go to controller and create another REST API for us, which is book a specific rental. So let me just copy paste another method for you that is going to create this rental. So it is going to create the rental information. It is going to take the name, the start date, end date, the total cost, and the availability, and then it is going to store it inside the rental object and the booking object. inside your database. Now for the confirmation, how do we want to see if that booking has been made? We need to create a new page that shows that the confirmation has been made. So let's go and check inside our rental if that confirmation page is available. It's not. So let's create that confirmation.html.twig, and let's create the view for that. Awesome. So now, if you want to book a specific hotel or a rental place, you should be able to see it. Let's try it. Let's say localhost 8000 again. And this time, let me try giving it the name to India, and let me try to book it maybe say from 5th March to 6th of March. And then if I search it, I should see a rental test that we have already created. Now it is showing the total cost because I booked it for 1 day. Now if I click on book, I should see the confirmation that the booking confirmation has been made. So now you see there is a page that we have created with Twig, the booking confirmation page that shows that the check-in date and the checkout date and the total place and the total price of that rental information. Now, the last thing that we need to do is we need to see how many bookings have been made till now. So this particular link that you see is going to create another we are going to create another REST API for it. Now this REST API is going to fetch all of the documents that are available inside the bookings. So let's me just give you an explanation. When you click on book, it creates a new booking for you, and this booking gets stored inside the booking collection. So when you go to my bookings to see how many bookings have been made, you should be able to see that this booking has been stored inside it. It also does another thing, that it also alters the availability for it. So now the availability date, it will skip. Now if you try to book another hotel between the same hotel but in the same date, it will not allow. So let's try to now create the bookings page for us. To do that, we need to create another controller for the booking because it is working on a different collection this time. So let's create booking controller.php. Yes. So this is going to fetch all the bookings, and this is now going to render the rental bookings html.twig. So now we need to create another file with the name bookings.html.twig. So let's create this new twig file. So this is just going to show you a table with the rental name, the IDs that have been booked, the start date, end date, and the total cost that has been made. So this is all the information that gets stored inside the booking collection. Great. So now let's go back to our application and see if my bookings is working. So we have created this rental test for us, and it gives us the confirmation name, and it gives us the start date, end date, and the total cost. Now let's try to test this application from start to end. So let's go to localhost, say 8000 from the beginning. This is the last part of the video that we are covering. Let's say we try to book another hotel with, let's say, this location, and let's try to keep the date as 7th March to maybe 8th March for a day. Let's search it. Now in this location there are three rental options that are available. Let's select this one. It says $254. Let's try to book it, and it has been booked on that specific date. And then let's go to my bookings and see if the booking has been made. So inside my bookings, you can see that the booking has been made for that specific rental option. Now at this point, we have reached the end of the video. If you go to the description below, you would see the link to create your Atlas clusters. You would see the link to the workshop and the GitHub repository where all the entire code is present. So you can follow this workshop step by step and create an application yourself. Maybe you can create some more REST APIs into it and submit a PR request, and we could extend this existing application. And also, it gives you an opportunity to create some amazing Symfony application going forward. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned. If you have any comments, if you have any questions related to the video, feel free to comment down below, and don't forget to like the video. Thank you.